Rāhina te kaumārima o whiringa nuku. I huri tuara te kāwanatanga ki te kaupapa toha a te ropu whakamana. Nā ka tīmata rātau ki te tango i a Mighty River Power mai te ture hino ngarawa. Kia tau ai te pōro ki te kōti a te kaunihera Māori. Rātū te kauma ono whiringa nuku.
We need to move Mighty River Power out of the SOE Act into the Public Finance Act.
How we go about determining what our best options are available to every single iwi to decide.
Kia kaha ngā iwi puta no I te motune, tātou, I te tautoko I te kaunihera Māori.
There are plenty of people that might want to injunct the Crown, but it's up to them to do it.
Tuatu I te tautoko ake a kupu nei, me tautoko a moni nei.
Rā apa te kauma whitu whiringa a nuku.
Iwi who, without making public statements, have indicated they're keen to buy shares in these companies, would like the opportunity, and at no cost to the Crown, we can help them.
I don't think they know what they're doing. On Monday, Shares Plus was off. On Wednesday, they're now going to sell shares to some iwi.
Still oppose the sale of those assets, but I mean, if iwi can benefit from it if it goes ahead, then it's got to be good.
This is not designed to hold off court action. I believe that there will be some court action.
Ara kia no tētehi atu pakanga I Wainganui I ngā iwi Māori me te karauna mo te kaupapa a Huarangi. Kua puta te whakatūpatoa te rōpu mana a iwi, kia kaua te karauna e takahi I te wāru o ngā hauaro tāwere o ngā ngāhere Māori. Rā pare te kaumā waru whiringa nuku.
I think it's been a very significant win for the Kohanga Reo Trust Board.
Kids that grow up secure and feel good about themselves, they can go anywhere in the world.
We're obviously at a point in time where we need to seek new beginnings, a refreshed look at how Kohanga Reo is in terms of its relationship with the state and go from there. But that is something that clearly the state and the Kohanga Reo movement have to engage in.
Now, Maori or Pākehā, people are entitled to natural justice before you put out adverse statements which affect your reputation.
Kids that grow up, you know, with a sole sense of they're no good and the families are no good and everything's no good, you get no good forever in a day.
And on Friday, the Māori Council served its injunction on the government's asset sales plan. Well, joining me in the studio is Council Solicitor Donna Hall. Kia ora, Donna. Thanks for joining us this morning. What's your argument going to be in court?
Oh, well, we've filed papers. It's an application for judicial review. It'll be dealt with first on Tuesday and we'll go from there. The
basis of your argument being exactly what?
Is it's in two parts, and the first is what was argued in the tribunal, that it would be contrary to the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi for the government to go ahead and sell the assets before it's straightened out what proprietary interests Marae have in water itself.
Okay. I mean, funding is an issue. You'd like Ngāi Tahu, for example, to come to the party and help out with funds. It's not going to happen, clearly. How are you going to cut your cloth, as Sir Eddie Jerry said last night, to fit?
Well, we have enough to start and to issue the proceedings and to get going, and to do that with good faith. And the groups are now going out and talking to all of their organisations. It gives them a bit of time to gather together the money. They all have to have meetings because it's trusts and corporations, individuals, Maori organisations that are contributing. So that's what's got to happen. It's just a process.
And how much are we talking about? $500,000, I understand.
Well, it's horrible, and every time we have to go on appeal, it becomes more expensive. So
we're talking a baseline of $500,000.
That should be the cost if we can deal with the case quickly. The case has got to run, and it depends on how the Crown wants to deal with it too. If they want to make it slow and hard, then the costs rise accordingly.
Mark Solomon says that it's too soon, the timing's not right, and the Māori Council doesn't need to be pushing forward at this point, and the only people that will benefit at the end of the day are lawyers who'll get new Mercedes.
Well, we don't believe it is too soon. I mean, what's happening is that on Tuesday, the government is going to be taking SOE, Mighty River Power, and turning it into a MOM. So what Mark said was that more water has got to run under the bridge, and from his perspective, he might be correct. But from the Council's perspective, for the groups that it acts for, there'll be no bridge left after Tuesday.
What do you make of his comments about lawyers being the only winners at the end of the day, though, in this sort of action?
Well, they've been going and talking for some time now and seem to be struggling to get to a conclusion on this issue.
They?
That is the iwi leaders group. And there hasn't been any dealing with better definition of the Maori proprietary interest in water. So it had to be dealt with, and lawyers, this is what we do.
Why should there be a unified approach?
There doesn't need to be. There won't be. Mark said it, that you're not going to get agreement across everybody.
But why is that the ideal?
Because it just makes it easier. Then the media doesn't come out and say, oh, well, Maori are all saying different things and they've got more costumes than Gaga and views on water.
But it's true. I mean, it's true that Māori have different views, isn't it? What's wrong with that?
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it. What I did notice about what Mark had to say is that we are absolutely of one voice that Maori retain customary proprietary interests in water. He said it, we say it, there's no difference on that really big point.
He's saying at this stage we wouldn't join court action. Do you think there's any hope that Ngāi Tahu might?
Well, like I said, they're talking direct to government. The Māori Council isn't even in the room, let alone at the table talking to anyone. We've been cut out of all of this.
So what's your next step? Let's say the injunction doesn't succeed.
Well, we're not there yet, and we're not going to say it's not going to succeed. We're going to let the case run. What I do think for now is important is that we get out the message about what is the case about, because there's lots of misconceptions running around. So if we start with just shares and shares plus, the Māori Council never took a case to the tribunal about shares, let alone the plus. Its case was that there were tribes, groups all over the country who had claims to water that hadn't been addressed. And we went out and talked to hapu all through the country who gave us their examples, starting with Portati Springs, 15 kilometres out of Whangarei. And the people from Portati Springs had their special water set aside for them. In the 1890s, 1895 it was set aside for them. And what happened is that the township of Whangarei was getting settled at the same time. So the founding fathers for Whangarei, because they couldn't go in and tap the reserve, a court had set that aside for Parewhau and Te Urioroi, the peoples from Portati. Because they couldn't break that direction from the court, they took the lands above the springs for survey costs, for surveys that Portati didn't ask for, and then rates, and they put a pump house on there and pumped all the water into Whangarei. Now, that happened 100 years ago, and they're still pumping the water for Whangarei there.
Well, let's just widen this out a little bit. Let's go to some analysis with a political commentator, Maria Bargh, and from our Rotorua studio, Willie Jackson. Willie, has the council taken the right course of action?
The council's got no choice. You know, they've been really pushed to the edge here, and they have to do this. This is about democracy. Now, I think the government is playing the race card here. Key knows what he's doing. He's gone through a consultation process, but as Donna knows, it's been a sham process.
Playing the race card exactly how?
Well, basically, he's putting out the line that the Māoris want to take everything. You know, it's all about Māori owning water. But if you listen to Donna's comments and Sir Eddie Jury, it's about proprietary rights. It's about respect. It's about acknowledging the treaty. You know, it's a claim based on justice. And it's not about greed. It's not about Mercedes, like Mark Solomon was saying. It's about justice. And it's very simple. And I think Donna's explained it well this morning.
Maria?
Well, I mean, I think iwi are always going to have diverse views. That's healthy. And iwi, of course, should have tino rangatiratanga over the decisions they make about water. But it's just how is that tino rangatiratanga expressed? And it might be best expressed in unity with others, with hapu and iwi that are too small or don't have the capacity to deal directly with the government. Urban Māori, of course, have to come into that mix and that question. I think the Māori Council case is important. They're seeking important legal questions, you know, the answers to those questions. And this point in time is particularly opportune. The government has refused to answer the questions around water since the 1800s, and now there's at least some leverage to force them to answer these kinds of questions.
What's wrong with the proposal that that unsettled iwi take funds and buy up shares?
Well, there are a number of things that are wrong with that particular proposal, but if you look in particular at the loyalty bonuses, for example, that are part of that package, so there iwi are buying on credit shares. New Zealanders who buy shares and stay in the scheme for about 3 years will receive a loyalty bonus. Iwi that buy shares, stay in the scheme for about 3 years, will not be eligible for loyalty bonuses. So there are all sorts of inequities in that whole kind of system, and I think we need to keep the historical context in mind as well. Think of the fisheries case and the way that we got trapped into the quota management system, the emissions trading scheme, and the way that we're now trapped with New Zealand units. Māori are the single largest holder of New Zealand units, and they're rapidly devaluing. So we've got trapped in schemes in the past that have devalued what are our political rights, our treaty rights, and they've been commercialised and devalued.
Willie, Mark Solomon is interesting. He's not that comfortable with the idea of asset sales, but he says if Holdings sees it's a good investment, he'll go for it. Why shouldn't he or any other iwi do that?
Well, there's a lot of us who are quite uncomfortable with what Mark Solomon's saying, and his former co-spokesman, Tuku Morgan. I think we should know what Tuku's saying. Tuku's saying that all the tribes should come behind the Māori Council and what they're doing. And I don't think what Mark Solomon's saying and what Mark Solomon's doing is helping Te Ao Māori as a whole. And I know his job is to look after Ngaitahu, but there's a wider responsibility here, and we need Mark to step up to the mark, I suppose, and realise that what Donna talks about, the small hapu up in the north, their rights could be prejudiced by Ngaitahu's actions at the moment.
We've had this discussion before. I mean, why shouldn't it be iwi for iwi? Why should Mark Solomon, become part of this action? Because Mark is seen as a Māori leader across the nation. He's certainly a Ngaitahu leader, but he hasn't shirked away too, I think, in terms of stepping up as a Māori leader. And I just think that there's, and I'd be interested in what the panel thinks, there's a wider responsibility here. The council for years has put up this type of kaupapa. The council has fought in terms of te reo Māori, sometimes against our own. Sometimes our own want to jump in and do the deal. At this stage, they need to sit back. As Maria points out, we're into maximising our equity, not diminishing it, which happened in terms of the fisheries, also has happened in terms of the spectrum. But if you look at Māori radio, we've had some real positives there. So we need to move as one as much as we can. OK, Donna, buying up shares in Mighty River Power, for example, doesn't preclude Māori from having a debate over water rights, does it? No, it doesn't. But can I just be clear? The council's case was never about getting shares. Its case was about ensuring that if water is going to be made a tradable commodity, and that's what the shares are about. It's the start of making water tradable. OK, so we do need to see these as two separate issues then? No, listen. The government has painted the council's case as opportunistic and just out to get shares. Sure. It is not. The case is about seeing that if water becomes tradable, a commodity, that the marae and hapu up and down the country that need water, them and their communities get access to water. Because all the evidence that we've read shows that when water is made tradable around the world, the Indigenous communities are always the ones that get hit first. The other issue that we haven't canvassed this morning, we do have to wrap very quickly though, is the ETS issue and those NZUs and New Zealand units, the value of those going down. Maria, how do you see this being resolved? Do you think that Māori will just continue to lose out in this? Well, probably. I mean, that's a strong possibility. The government's announced they're going to review the idea of a cap on the imports that are coming in. So, but I mean, really Māori, iwi that have those New Zealand units, are constrained again by the actions of the Crown, and that's what we see over and over again. And then when we look at shares, we look at the shares over the shares proposal over water. I mean, could that go the same way as these NZUs? Well, potentially, and we need to ask: are shares, do they provide us the full role that we want as iwi in terms of being in control and managing our waterways? And they don't. They don't. That was my point: is that they were never what Māori asked for in the tribunal. OK, and I'm afraid we do actually have to leave it there. And I mean, it's a tricky one, isn't it? And I'm not sure that we've come to any happy conclusion on this debate, but it is an important one. And I thank you both for being here, and Willie too, in Rotorua.